Look at all these interface elements. We have the tool tab here. You have some math functions here. So we'll go step by step. We'll try out a few, and then we'll see how we develop small scripts in containers, and then attach it to develop like bigger components. Try to understand something that's a bit more complex. Break down the thinking in simple terms. This is not like intermediate level. It's still basic, so that everyone gets to understand. And of course, we'll increase the difficulty as we move forward. And we don't have any direct some target form that we're trying to achieve. It's more of the exploration at this module as well. And then from the third module, we would be showing something related to art and collectible, where we'll have an end goal and then we'll develop it into it. So yeah, so first thing would be to understand how some of the math operations work. Easy way to think is if we drag the addition one, what you have is two inputs. We can give two numbers, say 25. Output of this goes input. And then you have another one. If you hold Alt and then if you hold the node and hit Alt, you can duplicate it. So that's an easier way to duplicate. You can add this, and then you get the number. So there is a command called panel. If you connect it, it provides you the value. We can play with the numbers. So this is like a quick intro to input output and giving the initial parameters. Now let's come to something a bit more challenging. It's not challenging, it's simple for most users, people who have been used to parametric tools. Simple, but these things will come up later on. Second are vectors. So we've already constructed a point earlier. Point has three inputs, x vector, y, and z. We gave those points three values. You could also get vectors for particular directions. Like for example, you can get a component for a vector in x direction. And why this becomes useful or handy is because if you want to do some transfer, if you want to move an object, you would also need to give an input of which direction that it needs to move, and therefore the input becomes vector. So this is, say, vector in x direction. You have a lot of vector nodes here. You could also deconstruct a point to extract values out of that particular point. It just gives you understanding of how the data flows. So if we give 20, and then let's say we give like 15 on this. can see how the data is flowing, and it comes back. You see all the lists in the same order of input coming as an output. So we've looked at points. Let's create a couple of points, and then start thinking from point to lines to curves to surfaces to solids, how we can develop it as a step-by-step process. This will probably assist you with the way of thinking of how things are broken down and how they combine to become something bigger. And in between, you'll have different steps that will help you develop the model further. You could either go directly from a solid box, or you can create a point, a rectangle, create a surface, and then make it into a solid. So these are different ways that you get more control of the form. Double click on the canvas. Point. What we'll try to do is to create a line. If you go to primitive curves toolkit, you'll have a lot of ways to create curves. So the first thing, easy way, is to create a line. Now you have 2 points, connect both of them. Another cool thing that you can do to add values is you could create here directly and then add the numbers. Just giving some random numbers for now. And you can see how the model changes. And that's the line. So you can click on the line, and then you can go here and then zoom into the model. You can see how the line is performed. There are more tools that you can find on creating curves. You can create an arc using 3 points. So in this case, we already have 2. Let's just create more. Interpolate is also another interesting tool that allows you to create a curve through any number of points. Hermic, you just notice that when you drag with Alt, it's creating multiple. Yeah.
It's a Windows issue.
So in this case, we're trying to interpolate with 3 points. So let's create this. So another point, let's say 16. 5, then let's say 2. And so we have 3 points. And then we can bring those points here, join it. And earlier I had shown we can add multiple outputs to one input point. So for that, we can hold shift, do it. Yes, because if you don't hold shift, this is what happens. If you connect another point, it just cancels out the earlier. So hold shift, and then you can connect all of these. You can hold control and then cancel out a particular connection. Yeah. So you see, now this creates an interesting curve configuration. Now these are things that you would probably use while modeling. You would want your geometry or the form in slightly unique manner. Similar tools. I think these components, most of them are similar commands to your other parametric tools, and therefore their adaptability is much easier. There is one tool that is unique to BeeGraphy. It is the curve editor. So now we've seen some of the ways to make lines and curves. Now, if you want to create or customize curves even further, so you can use the curve editor. The interesting bit is what you see here is what you see on this particular window. Now you can change the curve, adjust it the way like, and then it adapts. You can also add more nodes to it. So I think this is a pretty interesting feature that you can use to create some geometries. You also have controls over the location of each of those points, control points that you have for the curve, and you can move it manually, or along with that, you can also control the width and height of the curve altogether. You can also increase the decrease, make it polyline, like a nerd's curve, then use that as an input for your other functionalities. So these are how you can do curves. And it's we're just doing the initial bit, so everyone feel free to explore as much as possible. You have way more tools. You can have arcs. I'll go with circles next. We can try out circles. So in circles, what you need is an origin, which is a point. We could extract one of the points from here and then create a circle here. Another thing to just tidy up the script and your 3D space, you can hide. If you click on these three buttons, the set options that I was talking earlier, you can hide them. And now you see it changed status. So let's zoom in on the circle. Now radius is 10. You could either type the radius as a constant, or you could change it as a variable later on. So that's mostly about circles. You have surfaces. Now we discussed how we could move from points. So now points created curves or circles. And then now we'll look into how we can create surfaces out of these curves. So if you go to the surface tab, you have curve to surface. Just has an input, it just converts the curve that you've created. I'm not going for any specific form, it's just organic. I'm just trying to see how things change when you're bringing in different components. For a lot of the new users, this might be something that's helpful. have more tools like you could create a pipe surface. Let's try that. Now I'm hiding the flat surface here. We have a base curve, which is this. And then now we add it like, I see the pipe has two inputs. One is the curve itself. So we divide it and then the radius. So in this case is 10. We could create a range output for this and try to use it as a variable to play with. So we can have it for subject one, two, three. Yeah, so complicated your curve is, you can always bring it in and then see what that does. Look at more functions. You could create rectangular surfaces as well. We did that initially. What you need to give is an origin point, and then you have your width and length, and that creates a surface. I addressed it then. Yes. That's how you create surfaces easily out of some curves. You could also use some additional tools, additional transformation techniques like extrusions, extruding a curve into solids. So that's also something that we could look into. So now we have this curve. We have another process called extrude curve. You can add it to the curve. Now, earlier I had mentioned about the importance of vectors. So extrude curves asks for a direction in which the curve needs to be extruded. So if you have, let's say, vector along x-axis, vector along, you'll see how it changes.
Try refreshing.
Oh, yes.
Is the extrusion too small?
Extrusion,
No, maybe
I think
it's
it's fixed.
in vector X. It doesn't know how to extrude it, or no, something
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah. I think it's just X and Y.
But
Let's
there is
try reset.
obviously
Yes, again.
a bug.
Another interesting function is that if you this is not there in Grasshopper, I've noticed you can click on the geometry and it takes you to the component, which is quite cool. So you don't get lost in the script. So that's about extruding of curves, simple surfaces. We've done simple surfaces. We could also look at solids. There are solid options where you could bring spheres, boxes inside these. Just a bit. For the sphere. So as you can see, there's quite a lot of options for creating geometry. We'll go into more transformations later on, as we discussed earlier. So we looked at some of these simple geometries. Now we'll try moving, scaling, mirroring these kind of functions. So this would require a bit more complexities involved. So let's try moving this sphere to the side. The easy way, you can double click and click on move. It asks for the geometry, provide it to the sphere, and it has a vector input. Now we can give which direction it needs to be moved. Let's move it in Z direction, and then a factor of 10. So just to exaggerate a bit, we can provide say 30. Right? And it creates both because it's both part of the script and you can access either at any time you want. But if you don't want it, you can hide it. Now we have moved the geometry. Now I would create a range input here just to get a better control over the. So this is the move commands. There are more transformative tools, so you can move, mirror. I would say rotate. Rotate is something else that would come handy. Let's take this rectangle. So the way you navigate is you can keep moving your nodes, keep it closer, so that it's easier for you to kind of connect and progress with the script. So I'm using this geometry, the side rest of the geometry. Focus on this rectangle. Adding geometry, you have input for its center. So this is for the axis. Now it's taking origin as a center point. We could give angles. Currently, the angles are in radians. I'm sure most of us are familiar with degrees. So what you can do is if you go to math, under tools, you have decrease to radians. So you bring that here and give, let's say, 40 degrees. So it gets rotated along this axis. As you keep moving, it keeps changing. So that's something you can do with rotate. Change the geometry and see how all that works. Probably give a range output so that you can visualize it better. Yeah, learning, what was that shortcut for the range one that you mentioned earlier?
Well, you can type the number, or you can even give it a range like 0 less 10 or 0 less 5 less 10, for example.
Yeah. So that way you can.
By the way, for disconnecting, you don't have to hold command and drag all the way. You can just click command or control in your case and
Yeah.
click on the port, hold command.
Okay.
It will
That's
disconnect all if you have multiple.
okay. Okay. That's good. Good. G60. Cool. So that's rotation. You have move. The other transformation tools like mirror, scaling. Scaling is also quite important. We can try scaling the same box object. Geometry. Yeah, so that's also sorted. So scaling. So these are some of the quick transformation things that you all can try out. Learning. Let's take a quick 5-minute break, and then we can resume with the other things. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With that.
Okay.
While
All
you
right,
go
guys.
in a break, I can answer some questions if there are
Okay.
any.
All right. All right. Cool.
I published a poll. Well, we have a break. Can you guys take a minute to go to the polls? I don't know how it appears in front of you, but maybe if you could vote, we could understand better who has what kind of experience. We should have probably done that in the beginning to understand like how much time we should have dedicated to like the early things. There's so far 1 vote for no experience, and 1 vote for very little. 2 votes for some, 3 votes for intermediate. Okay. Some 1 vote for pro, probably the pro and advanced guys. It's very boring for you, unless Safiz and Divya, it were you.
I think we should go through this, taking into consideration that most people, it's new for them.
Okay.
I think the one that Divya would be taking is slowly pushing it up a little bit, because otherwise it'll be challenging for them to understand the next workshops and the commands